Hello, everyone. Welcome to this ESS BIZTOOLS presentation, where today I'm going to be talking with Jordan Lowry, the Managing Director of Blackstone Business Group, on COVID-19 employment issues. So how are you today, Jordan?
Superb, Peter. Thank you for having me here today. Thank you to our listeners.
We're very happy to have you. You're an expert on the issues. I don't know so much about COVID-19 itself, but on the human aspect of these issues that obviously involve team members. Jordan, just before we went on to this discussion, we were talking about the announcement that was made in the last couple of days by BHP about their workforce. So I've just thought I'd summarize this and really be looking for your comment on this as you go through today from an SME point of view, because that's the group of people who are going to be most affected by our discussion, I think. BHP is saying they're going to shut off access to all unvaccinated people from 31 January next year. There is an early vaccination deadline for fly-in, fly-out workers in Western Australia and Victoria, and that looks like that's 31st of December. And that's primarily because of the rule changes that the Western Australian government's made, that if you're not vaccinated, you can't fly into Western Australia after the 31st of December. BHP said it's going to work closely with its workforce, but I noticed that the union president in Queensland does not support the move by BHP. The company BHP is saying it's going to keep its own vaccination records of its workforce who have been vaccinated and any contractors. So is this something that SMEs should be doing? They're also indicating that they'll require visitors to their mines and their offices after 1 February to lodge proof of vaccination. Is this something that SMEs are also going to have to be doing? The union doesn't agree with BHP's action at this stage, that's the mining union, and is asking for more education, access and incentives. How does this affect SMEs? So Jordan, I thought it was very timely just to comment on some of the issues that BHP has addressed, but also the complications that might have arisen from their announcement in this broader context of how this whole process is going to affect small and medium-sized enterprises and their accounting, bookkeeping, chief financial officer advisors, who are the key reference group that a lot of SMEs have got, the ones that are not directly dealing with an organization like yours.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Jordan, it's a fairly broad subject, isn't it?
Yeah.
So we're all looking forward to your considered thoughts on where businesses should be going.
No, thank you, Peter. And it is a topic of much conjecture, right? There's arguments on both sides of the fence. We are seeing a government mandate or lead towards mandating legislation of mandatory vaccines. How does that impact a business? Or let's use BHP as an example and mirror and take from that the fundamentals and the principles and how they may affect a small to medium enterprise, which a lot of accountants and their clients would be listening, or even small to medium business enterprise owners or business owners at the moment. It's something we're facing. I know a lot of our clients, as an example, in civil construction in Sydney, have had the sites come to them and say, you're not vaccinated, you're not coming on our site. So to get into the nitty gritty of it, we've got, and we talked to union, right? So we saw what happened when the union didn't stand up for their members down in Melbourne. Okay, so it's probably in the union's best interest to put up some sort of resistance to this, to stop absolute, anarchy ensuing and losing members. So I understand their stance as well. However, when it comes to mandating a jab or vaccination in the workplace, you've got to remember a lot of these people who were refusing to get vaccinated, it's not for a medical reason. It is this personal choice. Hey, we're making a personal choice not to get vaccinated. And as a business, we then, there's this conflict between personal choice and also health and safety, a risk assessment to your business. When we talk about risk, we talk about the physical risk of someone catching a virus and spreading it to other people. And we want to really treat COVID as we would any other hazard in the workplace or potential hazard. And then we also have the risks to reputation and also profits in the event of a shutdown or during leak of, let's say we've got a childcare, right? We've got all the children at the childcare. It goes into the media that we've had a COVID outbreak in our childcare center. It's reputational damage. It's potential impacts to profits that are there. So just like any risk, we manage that, we assess that risk, and we make decisions. Exactly what BHP have done. I want to give you an example of this too, right? And an analogy probably makes it the most simple. I have a personal choice on a construction site to wear a hard hat or not, okay? No one's forcing that hard hat on my head, but we have worked out, as during the construction site, the principal contractor, that actually having a hard hat on, in the likelihood that something falls on our head, it's not going to prevent something falling on our head, but in the likelihood that something does, it's going to reduce the impact and the severity of that. The same is true with COVID. We're not, the employers with mandated vaccines are not forcing you to put an injection in your arm, but they're saying, hey, we have identified and weighed the risk up that if you have the vaccination, in the event that someone gets it or was contagious on site, we're going to minimize the likelihood of spreading that. And also we're going to reduce the severity in the event that someone gets it. So we're reducing the likelihood, we're assessing the risk surrounding a hazard. And just like if you don't want to wear a hard hat, you know what, we're not forcing you to come to site and put one on your head. But to work on our site, you're going to wear a hard hat for these reasons. Same is true with vaccinations. We have assessed the risk. And if you want to come on our site, we're not going to force you in the door and put a needle in your arm. All right. But if you want to come on our site, you need to have it done. So it's very much the same. We've got a work health safety legislation where we've assessed the risk. And Peter, that's probably the simplest way to put it. If you don't want to do it, okay, you stay home, take leave without pay. But there will get to a stage where if it is by personal choice, it becomes an issue of following management direction, okay? And the Work Health Safety Act is going to trump the safety of our clients, our visitors, and the other people on site is going to outweigh your personal choice. And if you choose not to do it, find a new industry, potentially, right? And this is where we're going to get some clarity over the months to come. But Peter, that's how we would, that's what BHP's thought process is most likely being through that. It's assessment of risk and weighing that up and saying, well, we believe that the best course of action to reduce the likelihood or more so the severity and the likelihood of spreading this or catching this is this course of action. And as such, we're mandating it.
Okay. And do you see that the SME employer has got any additional obligations to educate, access and offer incentives for people to get these vaccinations, as the mining union in Queensland is obviously saying BHP should?
Well, this is the thing is, you and I work with a lot of business owners, and a lot of business owners, the reality is it's a struggle. Okay. There's not huge amounts of financials in the bank for a lot of SMEs. So in the event that there's so much risk to their business in the event that there was a shutdown. Imagine if you're a hairdresser and you live in sort of every month to month, week to week. You're in close contact with, we have close contacts with people, clients. And this really begs the question of like, do we mandate vaccines or we want to see a passport of someone actually entering our business? Because is that fair to our business, whether employees or clients, if they come in non-vaccinated, that it could potentially impact our profits? That's a big consideration, Peter. So I hope that answers that question there. But these are things that business owners definitely have to weigh up, is if we are in an industry where we have to be client facing, the necessity when we assess the risk is a lot higher. If we're in an office environment and our staff can work from home and they choose to be non-vaccinated and we can facilitate that, go for it. I fully support that. I've got a number of staff that work from home. Because we know that, they can choose to work from the office, but if they want to work from home, it reduces the likelihood, the severity of spreading this. That's really important. But there's some industries where we can't, right? If I drive an excavator and I've got to be on site, if I'm working underground in a coal mine, and I've got to drive a truck, whatever it may be, I have to be on site. There is no work from home option. We are seeing a lot of employers though make it showing considerations where possible with the operational efficiency of the business is saying, so, okay, so if you want to take a period of like annual leave or leave without pay, that's no worries, making considerations. But we are going to get to the pointy end of the stick at some stage. Like imagine that if someone says, oh, do you know, it's my personal choice not to come into the workplace. They take leave without pay. But after 2 months, the business owner's like, well, I can't replace them. But I really need someone in that, you know, in that functionality or that bum in a seat at work. And this person's at home. If I bring someone else in and this person decides to come back, I'm overcommitted with staff. What do I do? And this is where we need to be really smart. Employers need to early on have a body of evidence in place, or at least get it, do you mean a written communication that is this personal choice, or is there a valid medical reason why you can't, do you mean take the vaccination? And we've come across this with a lot of employers, and very rarely, very rarely is it a medical condition. It's always personal choice. And unfortunately, Peter, whether you're pro-vax, anti-vax, there is so much information out there and misinformation that if you go searching for information aligned with your bias, you can be reading for days. You mentioned about being an expert in COVID. Like when I don't have a doctorate, there's a lot of people out there who deem themselves to be experts who don't have doctorates as well. And something we've got to be very careful of, whatever the side of the fence you're on.
Do you think SME businesses are going to run into issues when they might be an electrical contractor, one or two of their guys go to one of their clients, their customers' premises, and they get asked to prove they've been vaccinated, and that client of theirs may refuse them access onto their site?
Yeah, it's a high likelihood. Like I mentioned earlier, we're seeing that in the civil construction game. Like contractors, principal contractors saying, hey, you're a civil contractor coming to work on our site, not vaccinated, don't send him. Which means employers are then in this tough predicament, right? So the site can say that there's no ramifications. If an employer then goes to their employee and says, well, mate, you're full-time, but I've got no work for you. They need to make sure that, that they document that body of evidence. They need to document, do you want to take annual leave and then manage that process effectively. So I have been asked a number of times too, will people face unfair dismissal for terminating staff due to not taking vaccinations? Absolutely. The reason being is we will see a lot of employers just say we establish a body of evidence and we identify that it is personal choice. We're giving you a management direction and you've pushed back against that. But throughout that process, we've been procedurally fair, and the employee gets to one of those situations where there is when the impacts to their reputation or operational efficiency because they can't put a bum in a seat, and there's no valid medical reason there. If that led to termination, there's a high chance or a high likelihood that if they were procedurally fair, there should be no ramifications. However, there are going to be a lot of employers get unstuck. They're going to see these big people like BHP doing it, saying, if you haven't got it from here, or Queensland Health, or New South Wales Health, if you haven't got your vaccination, we're going to terminate you from this date. And I think a lot of people will see that process and then say, okay, well, I'll put a date in place and I'll communicate that to staff. And if they haven't got it, I'm going to terminate them. If they haven't been procedurally fair throughout that, like doing the background information, like we see the news, BHP says this date, otherwise you don't have a job. They've done all the paperwork. That process has been documented in-house. If someone reacts and does, what we see in the media, date termination, and that is not there to support it, you'll definitely face an unfair dismissal, because they will look at the process, not the result.
So this is a very important issue for the SME audience and their advisors, who invariably are the accountants. They may have lawyers that they're in regular contact with, but most SMEs are in far more contact with their accountant. What advice should accountants be giving them? Can they refer them through to Blackstone, for argument's sake?
Yeah, absolutely, Peter. And then it's not just limited to us, but my advice is whether you utilize someone like Blackstone Business Group or someone else, get the right advice. Don't Dr. Google it. You Dr. Google it, I can assure you it's going to end up badly, because each situation and each business is different. Okay. We may be an administrative business where there's lower risk, or we may be working in the disability sector or the NDIS, where we actually, or during nursing homes, or it might be medical, where we actually have really close contacts with people who would fall into the high risk category. Obviously, that's going to be easier to enforce and mandate. So get the right advice. I mean, like there used to be an old saying, like, you want advice from the bricklayer, go to the bricklayer. You want advice from the carpenter, go to the carpenter, not you made up the road or the tiler. So the same is true in business. Get it, find an expert in the field, deal with them, because there's a lot of, there's a lot of people who probably don't stay in their lane, and they cross over and they know a little bit about something, and that can be really dangerous.
Yes, yes. I've noticed in the media, and you and I discussed it a week or so ago, I think there was some threatened action by some disgruntled members of the Queensland Police Force who had been told that they had to have had their first vaccination by Monday or Tuesday of this week, I think. Do you know what's happening with that action? The commissioner stood people down?
Haven't seen the results of that, Peter, but it's a sticky situation, isn't it? Where you've got people who perform an integral service to society, but they're also in quite close proximity with other people as well. I think one of the biggest things a business can do at this stage is have things such as a COVID safe plan in place. But we'd also look at, if we were to have the police revolt or riot or push back or health, we're seeing that overseas a little bit too, is where there's so much pressure on the health system already to actually say, hey, we're going to cut 20% of our nurses and medical support staff. The flow-on effects can be huge. So we're in uncharted waters. We are observing very closely what works, what doesn't. But I'll be honest, Peter, we're along for the ride at this stage. But I think that's something that everyone can do, is view that and observe, and we're seeing what works, what doesn't, and make your choice. But like I said, sometimes it's because I had a certain choice on I'd aligned with a bias. I'll be honest, I obviously in this industry, I did a lot of research as well, and look at both sides of the fence, and sometimes it can be clear that there's a lot of misinformation out there too. So, but everyone's entitled to their choice and their opinion. But yeah, just like you're entitled to a choice or an opinion as an employee, as a business owner too. We've got a lot at stake. A lot of people, it's their livelihood. So I think they reserve the right to sort of make those decisions aligned with work health safety and the safety of their staff, their clients, and even the public.
Okay, so differentiation's a big issue at present, especially in accountancy businesses. Is this an issue that's going to come out of COVID-19 that a business could be promoting in its advertisements and communications with the public, that all of their team are fully vaccinated, to give them a point of difference?
Yeah, we're starting to see a lot of that too, Peter, because you do have some people who are very safety conscious, and the ability to actually, we're going to see civil contractors who will potentially, there's the likelihood of, like, you would win tenders. It's up to you how. We're seeing it on people's personal Facebook pages. They're putting up, I'm fully vaccinated, and some people shout it from the rooftops. They're loud, they're proud. Some businesses do that too, because it gives people the assurance that there's obviously they're aligned with the same value set. But even from a safety point of view, if they know that all staff are vaccinated and they put it up on Facebook, someone may be more inclined to sort of shop or visit that business. So we are starting to see a little bit of that in our news feeds, aren't we?
Yes. Jordan, a prime group that we're talking to today are accountants, bookkeepers, business advisors, people offering chief financial officer services, and they're mainly dealing with SME clients. In their conversations with them, I think they should be raising COVID-19 now as an issue. What is your risk strategy for it?
Yeah.
And can they contact you or your organization to get some input as to so that they can act more as a conduit between their client and your organization?
Yeah, absolutely, Peter. Look, we don't only offer that for just COVID issues. We do the same with HR, employee management, and work health safety. The reason being is you and I have spoken about this on a number of occasions. We're seeing the need for, with so much automation happening in the background, we're seeing the need for accountants having to pivot into that person of trust and that business advisory role, and where they actually bring added value to their clients and their client base. Because you think, I even think about my business, when the accountant holds this position of trust, or the bookkeeper holds this position of trust for the business owners, who usually are really good at doing what they do, not so much at managing the business. They rely on these experts and these content experts and people around them, that support network. So if you are in one of those seats or a position of support to business owners, understanding sort of where to direct them as well, really, really important. And that sort of adds to your ongoing value add to that client too, and the sustainability and longevity of your relationship with your clients.
Okay, so I think that just about wraps up what I had to discuss with you today. Have you got anything else you want to add?
No, it's a complicated topic, and it's really hard not to offend people, or because everyone has a take on it. But I think what we've done today is we've identified and looked at that example and digested sort of why they've made these decisions, that it's not personal, and that there is a true thought process behind it. There's method to the perceived madness, if that's what you're looking at, and it does come down to safety and risk. And although we support personal choice, sometimes the safety of others and the public, other employees, trumps your personal choice, and that's what we've seen in this instance.
Very, very well put to wrap us up. So thank you very much for talking to us today, Jordan. Oh, incidentally, where do people contact you? Do you just want to give us your contact information? Thanks.
Yeah, Peter, the easiest way with all our contact details, you'll find us at blackstonebusinessgroup.com.au. Or if anyone needs me you can get direct through to my mobile. And I extend that direct contact to anyone listening today, 0418 287 730. So would welcome any questions anyone has. Thanks for having me today, Peter.
Thank you. Thanks very much, Jordan, for joining us today for this conversation. This is a series that ESS BIZTOOLS are presenting with interesting people who are at the coalface of what's happening in the small business, medium-sized enterprise community and the accounting industry. So we will keep you informed when the next conversation along these lines is going to be held. Jordan, thank you very much for being with us today. Good luck in your business ventures, and we'll talk again soon in the not too distant future.
Appreciate
Have a great
it. Thanks
day.
very much, Peter.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.